Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Let's talk about Monday Night Football. I think this was a very interesting game, one that went kind of exactly how I thought it would go. Now, I want to start off with my biggest takeaway for this game. I think that one thing I want to note, the final score in this game, you see 26-14, but I don't really think this was a 26-14 type game. I think this game was not as close as the score would indicate, but I want to talk about some of the deficiencies and really some of the efficiencies for the Detroit Lions and for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to open this thing up with the Raiders. Davante Adams has to be freed. When we see the incompetence of a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, now I talked about it. I thought that him coming back into tonight's game would be huge for Las Vegas because I said it. Their rushing game has also been incompetent thus far into the season. Now today, we look at their rushing attack. They had 80 yards on the ground. Also, I want to get to Josh Jacobs, his rushing attack on the day. He had 15 for 61. They had their one scoring drive outside of the pick six, and that was a drive where they really leaned on Josh Jacobs to make big-time plays, and then he ran it in for the touchdown. So to see it be flipped like that, to now where you can lean on the running game just a little bit, and Jimmy Garoppolo, actually today, he went 10 of 21, had 126 yards and an interception. Now, that's a stat that we look at and say, okay, we're not getting a lot done in the air. But also one stat that I want to point to and say, on third down, we went 1 for 9. So you have to look at these things and say, when I was talking about coming into the game in my preview, I said we see a little bit of Michael Mayer, we see a little bit of Jacoby Myers, we see Davante Adams the most. Josh Jacobs, he gets some receptions out of the backfield. But in tonight's game, it was none of that. Josh Jacobs had 2 for 27. Jacoby Myers had 1 for 19. Michael Mayer had 1 for 19. Davante Adams had 1 catch, 11 yards, 7 targets. Now we're going to talk about the big time catch that he could have had, and it honestly could have been a touchdown. If he caught that football, he was walking into the end zone. Had a pass deep on the left side of the football field, and Jimmy G just missed him. This was in the second half, and you look at plays like that and say, now Davante Adams, he's going over to the sideline, and he's visibly frustrated. He wants something to be done about this situation. Now, I can't really say what he said on the sideline, but I think if you go back and look at that clip, you can see what his lips are saying. You can lip sync that to your best ability and understand that he's in a situation where he's one of the best receivers in football. Easily. And now you say, okay, I came here. I got my contract. I wanted to play with Derek Carr. And it just a lot has happened in just the span of 1 year. A lot has truly happened. Now Derek Carr, they moved on to Jarrett Stidham. Now they're with Brian Hoyer and Jimmy Garoppolo. You look at all of these things into it. Josh McDaniels, he hasn't done the best coaching job for Las Vegas. And it's frustrating because the defense absolutely has played their tails off. They played their tails off today. And I think when you get into the second half, now you're deflated because Davante Adams, he's frustrated. Jimmy G, he can't get anything going. Now, when you have the running game going like it was, you got to get out of that, because you got to put points on the board because the clock is now coming down to a situation and you got no receivers involved in this game. I think you look at offensive coordinator. You had to look at Jimmy G. I don't understand how they've came into a situation. Something has to be done. It's not an overreaction because I think what I've seen out of Jimmy G thus far, I've seen the turnovers. And when he has the offense, when he can play within the scheme, when he can play within the system, he can be efficient. But when he gets into certain situations like we saw tonight, where we had to push the football down the football field, it's just not effective at all. So I think that's something that I want to talk about. I really want to open up with that. Now, I think that looking at the Detroit Lions defense, I think they did play good for the most part. We look at it and say Josh Jacobs, he had a pretty solid day, but he only had 61 rushing yards. So you look at this and say the second ranked rush defense for the Detroit Lions, they're still a top 5 rush defense. They came out and showed some things after really that scoring drive with Josh Jacobs. So that's good to see that. But it was some big time players today. We could talk about Tracy Walker, Kirby Joseph. He had an interception. I think you look at all of these guys, Cameron Sutton. We look at our linebackers, Alex Anzalone, one of the guys I've consistently talked about, and Jack Campbell. Now, what I've been seeing with Jack Campbell is that he's getting moved around just a little bit. Sometimes he's playing on the ball. Sometimes he's playing off the ball. Just trying to see what you have in a guy like that. They've been blitzing their linebackers a little more tonight than we've really seen in the past. I talked about that in other videos. But you got a guy like Anzalone. He's getting 2 sacks. He's getting in the backfield, getting tackles for loss, making big-time plays in the run game. That is the type of football that you want to see. Now, albeit you're not going against the most technically sound run-blocking scheme, the most technically sound run-blocking offense, going against against the Las Vegas Raiders, but I think overall a good input. Ali McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, we saw Okwara, Romeo Okwara, and Julian. We saw those guys on the football field, and I think that's good to say that you have everyone coming to the party and making a defensive effort. Overall, you have some things that you really look at and say on that scoring drive, you want to clean those up, but I talked really last week about Aaron Glenn being aggressive on defense, understanding that if you're going against an offense and it's a good offense, you have to understand you're going to give up something. It depends on what you want to give up. Don't be complacent. Don't let an offense dictate what you're going to do defensively. I thought today they put their foot on the pedal, something that I wanted to see, something that I talked about. So that's overall good. Now, I do want to get into the offense. I think that it's been long enough talking about this video, but it's a lot of big-time players on offense today. And the first guy I want to point out, Jahmyr Gibbs. I kind of knew some things when David Montgomery got hurt. I figured, okay, where do you point to? And I said specifically in this game, if you want to win this football game, you want to set up the play action. You want to get those linebackers to come up. Now Jared Goff is hitting guys deep. Now he's going across the middle of the field. Amari St. Brown stepping up. Sam Laporta stepping up. It's going to have to be in a situation where you can run the football, and now you can force those guys to respect the run to the utmost ability. Now, I'm looking at Jahmyr Gibbs. He had 26 carries, 152 yards, and a touchdown, along of 27 yards. What he displayed in this game, he displayed everything. Contact balance, the long speed, the agility, the catching ability. I think he displayed vision, everything you want to see from a running back. I can guarantee you a film breakdown is coming on this game. It was just beautiful watching him out of the backfield. And you say, okay, you drafted this guy in the top 15 of the draft. If you're going to take a running back out of all positions, now you could say he's a weapon. You could say he's a dual threat receiving and running, but regardless of what you want to say, if you take a guy like that in the top 15 of the draft, he's going to have to be a major impact player. Tonight, you got everything that you wanted out of that pick. Brad Holmes said he valued him like a top player in the draft. Tonight, we got to see that. So I think that was good. I have to open up with that. And also adding to the fact, you're running the ball like this. Jared Goff is looking efficient, minus the interception. All of this is being done where you have guys rotating on the offensive line. I think we saw, actually, I want to go to this and check it out. So yeah, I had to go and double check this. We saw Kobe Sorstro. He started at right guard. We saw Graham Glasgow. He started at center with Frank Ragnow being out. And then we saw Wasaka. He was playing the other guard opposite Kobe Sorstro. So I think to have these rotations like you do on the offensive line and still being able to run the football, still having those guys step up, that's something that I look at and say is huge for this team. Now, also going to the receiving game, Amari St. Brown. I've talked about it. He's a star. I don't want to spend too much time talking about how he's a star because I say it every game and every game and every game. And I say that it's becoming a consistent theme at this point now in his career. You have certain guys on the football field, you're expecting it at least north of 80 yards. We can expect that of Amari St. Brown. Statistically, there is nothing to debunk this point. We look at him, he's consistently in and out of games. He's producing in and out. Every game that you look at him on the football field, he's coming out of the slot and they're going to attack it. I don't understand how teams, when you understand a player of this magnitude, you understand what he's going to do, you understand Jared Goff has that connection with him, they still can't stop it. It's looking like they're trying to do different things, but nobody has the code to stop an Amari St. Brown right now. So he had 6 catches, 108 yards on the night, and that's huge for me because we saw it in different situations. Sometimes he was just wide open, but sometimes he was beating man coverage, finding the soft spot in the zone. I really like to see that. And then Sam Laporta. We talk about these Iowa tight ends, and I say this will be another big-time game for him. Now, I just want to get this point out of the way. Jameson Williams still did not have a big-time game. I saw he had a drop early in the first half, came back with a big-time catch across the middle of the field. But overall, like I said, just not a lot of volume. He had 3 targets and 2 catches. So you're looking at this and saying, okay, still trying to get this guy involved a bit, still trying to build him into the offense. But I think right now Ben Johnson has what he wants, and it's looking pretty solid up to this point. So you have to say, okay, now you got Sam Laporta. He's chipping in. He had a touchdown in the passing game. And really with Jared Goff, he had the 1 interception. But I want to talk about this now because we talk about a team who's sitting at 6-2, top 3 seed in the NFC. And I'm saying, okay, Jared Goff, you've been efficient. You've been playing like an MVP, but just stop turning over the football in some of these moments. Now, today it didn't bite you, but I think when you get into big-time playoff football, those are situations where you say it's going to come down to every single drive, every single play, every single yard. Just clean up the turnovers a little bit. Now, I go back to last year. He hasn't been a guy guy who's turned over the football a lot. So I think you see pick sixes. You saw one in Seattle. You saw one in this game. You're seeing pick sixes more often from Jared Goff, and I think I'm going to challenge him now. Clean some of those up, but continue what you're doing in other facets of the game. You're still being accurate with the football. You're still pushing it down the football field when you have the opportunity. So I don't want to knock him too much for the pick, but it is a pick six. Can't act like he had a perfect game when he threw something like that. But overall, though, we look at the other passing attempts, I think it was a solid day. And like I said, going back to Sam Laporta, he had the touchdown in the red zone. Just a guy who I talked about this in the preview once again, but to see what he's doing consistently, he's a guy that you can trust. He's a top three passing option in this offense. And like I said, he's playing like a Pro Bowler. We talk about all the tight ends in the game. I think he has to be up there as far as how they're playing right now. He's in that conversation for one of the best, even in his rookie season. And it's never easy for a rookie tight end to translate because, like I said, you got to understand the protections. You got to understand the running scheme. And you also got to understand how to run routes versus man and zone coverage. So hats off to him. Big time game for Sam Laporta. But I think also conversely, you look at the Las Vegas Raiders on defense, and I talked about it in the first half. We saw a defense who was stifling. Even when they bended, they did not break in that first half. And I talk about Max Crosby. He had his imprints all over the game. Actually, I want to go to this and point this out. Robert Spillane, I talked about him with Divine Diablo being out. He's a guy who has to step up at that middle linebacker position. We saw that tonight. Trayvon Morey, he had 10 tackles on the night. Marcus Epps, a guy who was all around the backfield, making big-time plays in the run game and in coverage. So I think you like to see that. But also, one guy who I want to point out, Adam Butler. He was getting pressure off of the interior. Big time game from him. Looking at the defensive tackles, you talk about Jeffrey Tillery, you talk about Bilal Nichols. I think this is still a good defense, and that's something that I pointed out. I said, okay, this is a top 10 ranked defense statistically in total yards, but their weakness and something that you also pointed out for the Detroit Lions, making big time plays in the run game. They were ranked 25th in rush defense heading into this game, and I think we saw all why. Because early on, you start out, you have a lot of momentum, you're playing, you got Josh Jacobs, he's running the football. You get a scoring drive, then you get into a situation. Now Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not making plays. He's not pushing the football. They have no rhythm offensively. Now the defense, they're constantly on the field. You're going 3 and out. You're not getting any third down conversions. Like I said, they only had 1. They had 0 up into the fourth quarter. So I think these are all things you have to point at and say it plays into the defense. But I think the biggest thing is, if you look at it today, you want to be more gap sound. You want to stop the run. You want to be more sound tackling guys. Jahmyr Gibbs broke a lot of tackles. Also, Craig Reynolds came along to the party. He had a big time game, and I think that's what you want. 43 carries, 222 yards on the game. This is more like the Detroit Lions that we expected. You saw the dynamic duo at times last year, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams. I think now coming into it, you got Gibbs running like he's running. Craig Reynolds running like he ran tonight. And then you have to think when David Montgomery comes back, that's only going to add to the rushing attack. But I want to know what you guys think. These are my thoughts on the game. Like I said, a lot of big takeaways. Overall, I think for the Las Vegas Raiders, you got to fix some things offensively. The defense played is just about as good as they could play tonight without offense to come along to the party and help those guys on the football field. Davante Adams, he's extremely frustrated. We got to get him competent quarterback play, or we got to get him out of here while he still has value and get a lot of things back from him. I think he wants a first round pick. If you trade him, now the deadline is tomorrow. I don't know if a move is going to be made tomorrow, but I think if you look at moving him, the possibility of it, there's teams who want him. Teams who want a big time receiver and also some good quarterbacks who could use some help on the perimeter. So that's something we have to be monitoring, something we have to think about. I think it'll be a big time storyline tomorrow. I'm probably going to drop this video early as I'm recording it right now. It's 12:19. But for the Detroit Lions, as I finally really wrap this up, I think that the biggest thing I saw is that a team who fixed a lot of the things that I saw last week. Now, you didn't play the best offense to really show, the pass rush, because I think you got the pass rush in the second half. Like I said, Lee McNeil, Alex Anzalone, those guys getting into the backfield. But I think it wasn't really the best sample of a team that you're going against. So I want to see next week as we head into the bye week, coming out of that against the Los Angeles Chargers, that is a better offense that I think you can look at and say, okay, fixing some things in the coverage, fixing how you deal with motion, but also going into the bye week, it gives you the opportunity to clean some of those things up fundamentally on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I think that you look extremely crisp. I like how you ran the football. I think that it was something that I was talking about having to get back to it, because this is a team last year, when I think about it, they ran ran the heck out of the football. Top 10 rushing offense. So now seeing a night like tonight, eclipsing 200 yards on the ground, that's huge. But overall, I think the biggest thing that you would say as far as not a positive, have to score in the red zone. Riley Patterson, for as good as a game as he had, he missed one field goal, but I think overall, you don't want to have him kicking all of those field goals. You get into the red zone, you could have easily scored at least 35 to 40 points in this ball game. I think that's one thing I look at for Las Vegas. Just keep playing football. You've been in a lot of these games, like I said, really outside of the Buffalo game. I've seen a team that plays hard defensively and offensively. They're trying to get something going, but Jimmy G, he's not the guy. I've seen a body of work. I've seen some things on film. And, of course, he has good moments. But when he's put in a situation where he has to create, where he has to get out of the scheme and really be a guy from the quarterback position to now say, I can elevate the offense. He showed tonight he cannot do that. So do with that information as you want to. But overall, a good game. I think it was more interesting, kind of on line with what I thought I would see in this game. I knew the Detroit Lions had a good shot at winning. ESPN gave them a 70% chance to win, but I thought that it would be a game that was closer than a lot of people thought it would be, and it was. Thank you for watching as always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That's going to do it for today's video, and now